This video will walk you through how to make a grouse tail whisk broom. This is a Japanese-inspired broom. We'll talk through the methods for creating these separate bundles, and then for either simply wrapping a handle or for weaving a handle. Once you've made a few of these brooms, you can do a little more intricate tying on each of the separate bundles. But to start, we'll just make these simple bands and then gather them together to make the full whisk broom. So to start, we'll open one of our bundles of broomcorn. And split it into approximately 3 equal sizes. You can also get more decorative by making the middle section a little bit bigger or smaller, or doing other variations. But at the beginning, I recommend trying to get pretty close to 3 equal sections. We're going to be taking these sections and simply wrapping some string around them to make our 3 bundles that will then connect together into one whisk broom. To start, I'll tie the 2 overhand knots in my string. I'm going to ensure that I have a pair of sharp scissors, my ripcord, and my hanging loop within arm's reach. I'm going to take my first bundle, and again there's a lot of variation with where you need or where you can tie the bundles together and give this broom a different look. But I'm going to start off by just tying it pretty close to the middle. I'm going to slip that knot in there. Give one wrap around, pretty loose, and then I'm going to slip my ripcord in with the handle down towards the sweep end of the bundle and the loop up towards the handle, what will be the handle. Now I'm going to give one more wrap around, moving my string, traveling it up towards the handle. Then I'm going to really tighten down. Now, the number of wraps that you do in this step is totally up to you. I recommend at least 3, and you can do anywhere up to 10, 15, depending on what look you like. So I'm going to go with 5. So I have 5 wraps around. Now I'm going to clamp down with my thumb on the string, cut it off, slide it through the loop of my ripcord, and then pull it back under. And now I can cut this string off that's captured under my last few wraps, nice and close. So I have my first bundle. Now I'm going to do that twice more, doing my best to get the wrap in the same spot on each bundle. Okay, now I have my 3 bundles. So the first handle style I'm going to cover is a simple wrapped handle. To achieve the wrapped handle, decide how you want your bundles to sit in relation to each other. The two sides can be a little bit higher, a little bit lower. You can make them stepped, or you can make them somewhat even. I'm going to make this one fairly even. Make a couple more knots in the end of your string. And then on the back side, which is the side where your string first came out and where your working string is tucked under the last few strings, go ahead and tuck that knot into your middle section. And then hold all the sections together approximately how you'd like them to look in relation to each other. That knot just slipped out on me a bit, so I'm going to tuck that back in there. Okay, same as when we were forming the bundles. We're going to wrap a couple times around fairly loosely and then really pull up on the whisk broom to tighten it down and capture that knot inside the broomcorn. Now I'm going to match the width of these bands on the first and last wrap. So I'm going to do 5 wraps around. I'm going to angle up, bring my string back to meet the tip of my angle, and then wrap a couple times around. And I'm going to continue in that pattern. Alright, now I'm going to do my 5 more wraps at the top to end my whisk broom. So first I'm going to add in my hanging loop, and I'm going to choose to put that on what I consider the back of the whisk broom. I'm just slipping the 2 ends of the leather loop under the string. And right next to that, I'm going to place my ripcord with the handle side down towards the sweep end of the broom, since my string is traveling up towards the top of the handle. Alright, so this is my 5th wrap around. So now I'm going to clamp my thumb down over the string, cut the string off, slide that through my ripcord, pull my ripcord under, and cut that off. Now I can spread out the sweep part of my broom. And cut that straight. And that is a wrapped handle grouse tail whisk. Now I'm going to show you how to make a handle that is woven instead of wrapped, if that's what you prefer. So I have my 3 bundles that I've already created. And I'm going to do the same thing as before. I'm going to decide how I want them placed in relation to each other. I'm going to try and make this one pretty similar to the last one that I did, with all of the bands being fairly even. I have my stems that have been soaking overnight, as well as my hanging loop, my ripcord, and my scissors. going to tie a couple overhand knots in the end of my string. And this time I'm going to be starting up near the top of my handle and weaving the stems down towards the sweep end of my broom. So I'm going to do the same thing as before. I'm going to bury my knot in that middle bundle. Loosely wrap around, making sure I get all of the bundles situated how I want them to look in their final broom. Now I'm going to wrap a couple times around, and I don't need to make those wraps pretty. I just want to make sure that knot is nice and captured. Now I'm going to move my working string to what's going to be the very top of the whisk broom. And that's to ensure when I put my stems in and fold them over that none of this string is going to show. You'll notice that your stems have a pointed end that's tapered and a flat end. They also have a pithy inner side as well as a shiny outer side. When we're placing our stems under our string, we're going to place them so the pithy side is facing up and the tapered side is down here caught under the string. Now we're going to work around placing our stems in, putting them so that about a finger's width pokes out from the bottom of the string, and making sure that as we work around, our string doesn't cross over these other wraps underneath it. We're also going to be counting to make sure that we get an odd number of stems. As you're placing your stems, you don't want to shove them too close together. You just want them gently touching each of their neighbors. You'll notice also that I'm pulling up on the broom with my right hand, and I'm placing each stem in with my left hand. I'm not trying to hold all the stems on the broom with my hands. I'm letting the string do that work for me. And 11. All right. So all of my stems have been added. Now I'm going to wrap around one more time just to make sure everything's securely fastened. And then I'm going to angle my string down towards the tips of the stems and wrap around once more. When I get back to the beginning of where I first started adding the stems, I'm going to start folding these stems down underneath this working string. To do that, I'm not going to torque the stems in this direction. You can get away with a little bit of that, but if you do it too much, you'll probably break the stems. The stems do really well to move in this direction, however. So I'm going to bend it down and then rotate the broom away from me and slide the stem under our string. You can do them one at a time, or if you feel comfortable, you can do multiple stems at a time. Now I'm going to add in my hanging loop. Give myself 3 wraps around before I start weaving. Okay, there's my 3 wraps. So now I'm going to start weaving down this broom. To do each weave, I'm going to take 3 steps. First, I'm going to plant my thumb on the string that's on the stem before the one that I'm going to go under. Then I'm going to start to lift the stem I want to go under, rotate away, and pass that string under. I'm going to do that every single time I weave under a stem. Plant my thumb, start lifting the string, and rotate while sliding the string under. It's very important to clamp your thumb down on the previous stem, because if you don't, as you bring the string around, it's going to want to start traveling down, and it's really hard to get it back up into its position, making a nice tight wrap or nice tight weave. Now you notice we're able to just continue around going over, under because there's an odd number of stems. If we had an even number of stems, when we got around the first time, we'd be going over and under the same stems that we went around the last time. And then we're not going to get a woven handle. So if you do accidentally end up with an even number of stems, you can do a few things to allow yourself to continue the over-under pattern. You can either take a thicker weaver, or stem, cut it at the bottom, and then separate it into 2 stems that you can weave separately. Or you can find 2 thinner stems that maybe are right next to each other, and you can hold those together and weave them as one. There's also a lot of more intricate weaving patterns that you can use if you have an even number of stems, but I'd recommend waiting to explore those until you have a little more experience. If you have a stem that's starting to split, just hold it together and weave it like one stem. And when you finish the broom and it dries, you won't even notice that it was split. Alright, I'm going to consider this the end of my handle. So I'm going to slide my ripcord in with the handle facing up towards what will be the top of the whisk broom, and the loop end towards the sweep. I'm going to wrap around 3 times nice and tight. I'm going to clamp my thumb down on that string, cut it off, slide the tail through the ripcord loop, and pull it under those last couple rounds. I'm going to cut that off. Now I'm going to go around and cut off the excess broomcorn stems. Now you can fan out the sweep of your whisk. You'll notice I didn't get all of my bundles tied exactly in the same spot, so my middle bundle is a little bit longer, but that's totally fine. I can just come along and cut that all even. And there's your woven handled grouse tail whisk broom.